what is Google's best interest? Their best interest is to get a click out of you that is paid. So they want to keep the user on a Google owned asset before they send it off to some other website, some other asset. So if they can replace the organic stuff at the top with generative AI, that keeps you on Google's SERP for as long as you can. And then the ads are surrounding that generative AI at the top there like that. So
I think SEO is a good thing to combine with something else. Like people talk about like a T-shaped skill set. I don't like that. I like the pie shaped. I'm apparently not the first person to think about that, but to have kind of at least two sort of areas of specialty. There's a lot more sort of like area in between those. So I think that like having web dev experience, having like some kind of like UX understanding combined with a strong SEO understanding, and using SEO more of like as a, sort of a framework. I mean, nowadays it is sort of more of like an approach than it is really like a strict discipline. So like in 2001 to 2010, maybe, SEO was really a discrete sort of thing. It was just like trick Google, trick Yahoo, stuff words in, create links that they haven't found out are bogus, or, now we think of that as sort of snake oil. But back then it was like, oh, I made good content and I lost out to someone who did some link BS. And so it kind of took this evolution from, I'm the guy that knows how like Google and Ask Jeeves or whatever works. And it transitioned more towards, kind of like a content thing, a more like relationship building, sort of link building thing. And there was sort of an era from like maybe 2008, 9, 10 to maybe 2014 and 15 where there was still a lot of these old school black hat tactics that, still work sometimes, but Google was attempting to crack down on it. And so their algorithm would reward all this stuff. And then they'd catch people doing it and penalize them and make their own results actually worse. Like they'd actually punish them to a higher degree than they would just to make the results better. They would punish them because they were trying to basically, control a room of 10 people with one 6-shooter. And so they were just hammering down on people that were doing these old school tactics. And then around, 2014, 15, 16, they slowly started roll back some of that penalizing kind of philosophy because they were able to simply more reliably detect and ignore, keyword stuffing and, white text. I mean, it's a little bit older, but like, BS, like white text.
I remember that. Yeah.
Background kind of BS. Like,
dude, I had a client ask me about that a couple weeks ago. He's like, can't we just do some hidden text and like some of this? And I was like, no, we can't. That's why you hired me, to tell you no.
Yeah. I'm sorry you got buried under a rock in 2004, but we can't do that.
I mean, he runs a very successful business. He's busy talking to humans and distributing
stuff across SEO BS.
He doesn't look at the internet. Let's put it that way. Yeah, exactly. He's not doing technical stuff.
Exactly. And it's funny because a lot of people, I still hear people say stuff like, oh yeah, it's like some SEO bull crap, and a lot of people out there still think of SEO either negatively or positively, and generally negatively, as like what they got spammed about in 2010. Hey, I can give you 100,000, DR1 links or whatever, like we can DA1 links. Now, after Google sort of like cleaned out that sort of stuff from their algorithm, made it less about manipulation, way less. It's really more like it's not really a discrete sort of job anymore. It really is just make website more gooder. That is SEO now.
I know it's true. Yeah, I know it's right.
And it's still like there's still a lot of technical stuff where the developers can mess something up where you're blocking Googlebot or you're doing there's quite a bit of technical stuff that is like really like really sort of more of a defensive posture where you got to make sure you're not like actively screwing stuff up. And it can be pretty easy. Like, developers can say, oh, we have to control this bot traffic. I saw a site very recently, actually, that someone I worked with used to work at the place where they apparently were worried about bot traffic messing with their conversion rate data. And so they blocked all the bots, including Googlebot. And their organic traffic completely plummeted. And there's, migrations are still a very technical SEO sort of thing. So when you're taking, a website moving into a different platform, you're doing a huge structural change, you're changing all the URLs, especially, you're getting rid of some content, combining some content. You do have to understand, like, a lot of that is technical, but a lot of that is really just getting in the mind of the user for, different individual pages, and on larger sites, trying to like find ways to match pages together using, Excel or Google Sheets or whatever, to try to like figure out, systematically, like where should people go if they were going to visit the old page. And doing that consistently during a migration, doing that promptly, getting that all in there, making sure that everything's indexable when it needs to be, making sure you're not creating a billion pages, because you can very easily program a website to create more web pages than there are atoms in the universe or whatever. But Google's going to stop at some point. And so there's a lot of that where people will push a site live and completely tank the traffic. I hear a lot of people say that, website migrations inherently lose organic traffic. That's just how it works. No, it's just that everyone you've been involved with has tanked, and it's not the most uncommon thing. Like, it can be hard sometimes, depending on what the project is, to like not have anything go wrong. And there might even be things that you identify early that, the developers are like, oh, we couldn't do this. And it, it might go live and you might lose traffic to a section of the site. But really, like, a lot of that is kind of a negotiation with developers, with, earlier on with, the stakeholders, to try to figure out, like, hey, this is a potential risk. We need to mitigate this. And if you're told, like, that's out of scope, like, we can't recreate all these pages that we used to have that were bringing in traffic, like, because of XYZ programming problem or XYZ scope problem. Like, you need, as an SEO person, you need to come up with like alternatives. You need to come up with something that will be easier for the developers to implement than the perfect ideal solution, but still, provides 95% of the value that you had before. So whether that's like, e-commerce pages are changing, and we're losing some kind of structure we had, some kind of set of pages. How can we bring those users somewhere still useful, such that they won't need to click around at all, or maybe not too many clicks to find what they were going to try to find before. That's kind of like the range of a lot of the technical stuff. I mean, there's still like schema. There's a lot of stuff around there, but it's really all about figuring out how to get information in front of people. Yeah, again, it's not sort of a search engine robot tricking game anymore. So for the past, 10 years, it's really just been about creating good content, creating good sales funnels. It has a lot more crossover with UX than it used to. Because, a lot of what Google does now is, it used to be sort of, who has the most links? Let's put them up there. But now it's, links are a small factor. But it's the Googlebot's understanding of the semantics of the content are what brings a result. So when they start testing, is this page good? So they start doing a sample. They start showing it to a subset of people. They do little tests, and if people click on that more, if people click on that and stay on it, they don't pogo stick, which is when you go back, you click on it and then you go back to Google and you click on something else and stay there, or you go back to Google and you redefine your search because you must not have explained it well enough to Google. That's how they know that page was not a good match for that search the person just put in. So they're really just using semantics and then validation with user behavior data, massive amounts of user behavior data. That's why Bing sucks, is because they don't have behavior data. I don't think the people at Google are significantly smarter than the people at Bing. It's really just the network effect. So if I search for best pizza place in Waukesha or something, or best pizza place in Waukesha that has breadsticks or something, maybe 50 people have Googled that at some point. 2 people have Binged it. There's not enough data for Bing to really know what a good result for that really weird specific query is. There's plenty of data for Google to say, oh yeah, we have statistical significance on this being a good result, this being a bad result. And that, you multiply that out. That's why Google's dominant. That's why they're going to stay dominant until they get broken up by antitrust.
Yeah, until the government steps into it.
Yeah, there's no mousetrap. These search algorithms, AI, everyone's desperate to get into AI now because it does generate a lot of user behavior data, and the AIs are not again like that kind of represented sort of like a big shift in kind of a philosophy and sort of an approach to answering questions. But the best AI that in 5 years is going to be the AI that had the most people using it strictly. Because it really is just validation on heaps and heaps and heaps of user data. That's why Google is, they are officially a monopoly. They're officially guilty of violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. There's like 3 lawsuits against them right now, and 2 have been ruled, and they're awaiting remedy, which takes a long time. And one of them is still going. So there's like a 2020, a 2023, and then the Epic Games one was the other 2021. And both of the 2020 lawsuits, they've been found guilty of monopolistic practices. I don't know if you've heard much about that.
No, I haven't. Well, I kind of knew that there was some investigation into like the terminology had been thrown around there in the news and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was any official rulings. I know what Epic Games is. What are you talking about with the Epic Games one? What happened there?
So Epic Games sued Google and Apple like on the same day. They actually lost against Apple, but Google was, different judge, different case. But mostly it was that Google was doing a little bit more anti-competitive stuff. And so Epic Games lost against Apple, is in the course of winning against Google. For basically having these limited app stores. So that was specific limited to their behavior on Android, and the Apple App Store for Apple, for not allowing you to have any kind of link to an alternate shop. They're basically they're the only game in town. You're pretty much locked down to the Google Play Store and the Apple Store for these the 2 primary types of devices. And they take a big cut, and they have really strict rules about what's allowed to be on their devices. I mean, it's not how a computer works. I can install any software I want. Maybe at worst, Microsoft will pop up and say, I don't have a certificate. Are you sure you want to install this? Like, it might be a virus. I don't know. But ultimately, I can break my computer as much as I want to. I can do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of the time, that's just it's not a problem. It's just I get free software. I get to pay for software. The developer gets 100% of it instead of 70 or whatever. But the phones are locked down. They're a locked ecosystem. Epic Games' problem was that basically when you buy something off your phone, so when you buy like their skins or whatever for Fortnite, basically.
Well, we're talking when they want their game on a phone, because people can still play these games on like a PC or a computer, like a PS5 or something like that.
Yeah,
so
and they get 100% of the income when they're on the computer, or probably closer to 100% if they're on like a PlayStation or whatever. I don't know what like the PlayStation's cut is.
Sony takes a little bit, but whatever.
Yeah, but then for Google and Apple, it's like they're taking 30%, and they don't actually let you like log in and set up a payment that goes directly to Epic Games. Like I can't just pay Epic Games money. I have to pay through the App Store. And if they set up an alternative, or if they even have a link to a website where you go to a website and sign up for our premium monthly, whatever subscription BS, they actually at some point, I think they got taken down from either the Apple or the Google stores, or both of them. I don't even remember, but you'll get taken down if you even like tell people on the app, hey, you can go pay us somewhere. You encourage people not to pay through the App Store and give Google or Apple that 30% cut.
It's a very interesting concept, because I've been selling stuff on Amazon for about 10 years now, and they do that too.
Yep.
You cannot have any link to any external website on Amazon.com. You can try to sneak it in there in your product images. Maybe like when the customer gets it in the mail in your actual packaging, they can't stop
flyer in there
that.
Says, go to our website next time, for love of God.
Right, exactly. Something like that. But so it's like, okay, in like the history of the human race and technology, is Amazon on deck for the anti-monopoly conversation? Because it's like, well, where else do you, I mean, it's a little different. It's different with them because you don't have to go there to buy something. But that's true with phones. There are only two players in the game. So you have to go to one or the other to have a phone operating system that works and downloads the apps. So it's strange to try to use that approach in a legal fight, like the whole third party links thing. But I don't know. I'm sure they thought it out, for a little while.
Yeah, and it's like the people who make the hardware should not be able to sort of just like dictate what happens with anyone who uses the software. That's pretty much what they're doing. I mean, I think Amazon's also being sued by the FTC.
Oh, good. Yes, it's a matter of time.
And that'll make everyone's job either easier or more interesting, or both. And like the FTC has been really aggressive with antitrust, basically just aggressively enforcing the laws we've had the whole time. Basically, the last time this happened on the scale of Google being found, guilty, was Microsoft in 2000. And just the fact, like, Microsoft lost the case, but then basically the FTC got a lot more friendly to them in 2001 when they had to come up with a remedy. Bush administration came in and replaced their FTC chair, and it was their job to decide what penalties would happen after they were found guilty under the Clinton admin. And so they went as light as possible on Microsoft. It was still kind of big, but it was much, much lighter touch than what was about to happen. Even just having that experience of going through the case, being tried at all, was even worse for Microsoft than the penalty they got, because while they were being, while their documents were being torn through, they did not want to go do more anti-competitive crap while they're being investigated, because it was just a huge risk. And so they stopped buying people. They stopped crushing competition. They at least slowed down on crushing competition illegally. And that was 2000. I mean, Google started in 2001. They would have been bought by Microsoft. They would have been turned into a feature in Windows or something, or they would have been just deleted off the face of the world. We would have never had Google. All that value that, Google created in the early days would have been gone. And right now we're seeing the same thing. Google has walked it back a little bit. They've been a little more cautious. Even if they get a really light punishment, they've already lost, but even if they get a light punishment, they're still going to be, in 5 years, there's going to be some, competitors to them. There's going to be a flourishing that we're not even really we can't even really see yet. But if they could get broken up, they could get, Android could become its own company. Google search, one of the suits is that they found that they have a monopoly in search text ads and search engines. Google's been really kind of at the stage of using their monopoly. They built it and then they used it. That's how it's all, Amazon's in the same place too. They built it. They had really, really fast shipping, really cheap. Everything was super cheap. Just blew everyone out of the water, crushed everyone. And now they're raising prices. They're taking more out of their sellers.
They're a terrible partner for third-party sellers.
Terrible.
All third-party sellers across the planet are complaining about that right now.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, they're absolutely crushing. They, because the stages of making a really cool website that does really cool stuff is you create something amazing for users. You get everyone to use a bunch of venture capital to create something that makes no money because you're just giving away free value to users so that they join. And once you've got mostly everybody, you start selling them out. You make the experience worse for them. You make the experience really good for businesses to hop on and try to extract money from your big user base. And then the next stage is that you start to squeeze the businesses, and you all your third party, starts to wither, and you're stepping on them. And when you break up a company like this, you could go back one or two stages. You go back to, okay, well, the users aren't really seeing anything else, but the businesses are able to negotiate. There's 4 games in town. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in town. And so they have to not make so much money off of you selling your stuff on their website. Like, they have to figure out what it actually costs them, and they have to be competitive with you. Or it gets broken down so much that really they're in like the scraping at users kind of phase. They're trying to just offer really cool features. I mean, Google's people think of Google as like this innovative company, but I think that's inertia. It's very stagnant. I mean, they haven't really messed with their search feature until the AI thing, which was a kind of a bust. Like, there's a lot of bad answers in there, and they kind of were reluctant to throw it in there because they knew they'd probably tested it long before anyone else had, and they were seeing these horrible answers that come out of their AI compared to what you can find from, oh, hey, I think this website knows what you're talking about. They have an answer. Trying to answer stuff themselves, they're telling you to eat rocks. Literally, how many rocks should I eat per day was showing up with, you should eat like at least 1 rock per day.
I never heard that one.
Yeah. Very, very famous Google result in the last half year. There's a ton like that. Man. There's a ton like that. And Google didn't really want to ruin their reputation in that way, but they felt they had to because, generative AI is, kind of the next big thing, and they want to maintain that monopoly. Like, they don't want that user behavior data going to somebody else. They want it going to them. They want to hold on to that. They used to have advanced search. Like, I think they still have that, but I haven't used it in a long time. Like, they have a really poor advanced search that like no one ever uses. They used to have special character operators. Like, you could put like a tilde in there for like approximately this. I can't even remember anymore. It's been so long since they deleted a lot of this stuff. And it really is just like a search engine where you put in a word and it shows you an ad. That's the philosophy they have not worked to break. And, the AI thing is a little bit of an interruption of that in some ways, but they feel like they just have to. But really, they don't want to be better at showing you real information. They just want, like, even like a couple of years ago, they had to, I think like last year, they had to roll back like a little bit of like, it was way too commercialized. Like, you'd look up anything and it'd be like, you want to buy the thing? No, I don't want to buy it. I'm trying to find out information about this topic. And you're like, you buy something related to it? No, I want to find information. And it's still, I mean, they doubled it and then took off a quarter of the doubling. So really, it's still super commercialized. And I mean, you can't ask Google. There's all kinds of publicly available information that Google could collate. It could be like the Star Trek, like, computer, give me a list of all the things, give me a list of, every instance of someone, saying this, or give me every instance of someone who is in this position who also has done this, or every location that
Cortana and Halo, like exactly. A true AI you can talk to.
A true AI you can talk to. Yeah. And they've all we have now is this frickin' generative AI, which is a really complicated parrot. And it's not, it'll tell you itself, I can't pull information. I have a sense of words that have been said, and I can repeat those words in creative ways. I can't look stuff up,
I think when I post this episode on my site, I'm going to use block quote text and have it say, Google's AI is just a terrible repetitive parrot.
Parrot, yeah, just said. Yeah. And every LLM is just a parrot, a complicated parrot.
Parrot.
And you can't look stuff up. Like you can't. And even when I've noticed sometimes I'll be looking for some niche kind of. It happens like to me like a few times a month. Maybe 10 times a month, I'll be looking for something a little bit more complicated, and Google tries to sell me 10 different things. And then, I'm like, no, I mean this, keep this word. I don't want to hear this word. I'm doing the minus and then the quotes. And it'll hit me with, are you robot? It'll stop giving me Google results and be like, what the hell are you doing? You searched 10 times in a row. You must be just like scraping. And they know I'm not scraping. They know, they have enough. They see my mouse moving around like a person. They see, I'm not just like looking up every letter of the alphabet in sequence. I'm not like
typos and that kind of thing too, right? Yeah.
I'm clicking around. I'm looking around. I'm scrolling through. They know I'm not a robot. They don't want to facilitate like really information retrieval and being a utility. I really think that if they had 5 competitors that were about the same size as them, they'd be like, how can we make the product better for the user? They'd be focused on that, but they haven't done that in years.
So I actually was just thinking about asking you that question. So let's go in that direction now. Why haven't we ever seen a significant Google competitor in the search? It's not like, it's not hard to make a search engine. Everybody has one. Amazon has one, like YouTube has, YouTube's owned by Google, but like an individual site or concepts to make the machine that powers the algorithm that indexes content, scrapes it, finds it, organizes it, whatever. It's very doable by now. I think the word Google, it's just such a fun, clever brand name. It's like, it's like, not like Pepsi and Coca-Cola aren't direct competitors, but I think that like Coca-Cola for some reason just is the number one dog, or like, there's got to be some car company, like maybe it's Toyota, but like in every industry, there's just that word that you say, and it sticks in the human psyche so well, you don't want to use another word. So like the word Kleenex has become synonymous with facial tissue, or like ketchup with like, a bad example there, but like, like some brand of ketchup, it's like, to Google something just means to find it on the internet, no matter even if you're not using Google, just like the word just means search online for it. So that word is sunk into the psyche so much. I'm like, is that the reason? Or like, what's the real reason why like DuckDuckGo and Bing and like Yahoo, there's like, they are out there, but none of them have made the jump to like give them a fighting chance.
And because that entrenched position in people's brains, it's part of why people aren't moving off of it. But part of it is that the results are better. A decent number of people tried DuckDuckGo. I tried DuckDuckGo. I use it occasionally, but like, it's not blowing my socks off. It's not, it's just a Google, but slightly different results, decent, sometimes worse, and there's less data in there. And that's really the key, is that they've built up an entrenched position where they were really kind of a first mover on an idea, which was PageRank back in the day, links. Mm-hmm. We're gonna automate this. Yahoo was literally people in a sweatshop going, this website will show up when people type this. This website will show up when people type this. Yahoo keyword baby is going to be baby.com.
So Yahoo was humans logging it all.
Humans logging it all.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Google used webmasters as a proxy. They used webmasters as an editorial proxy. And then basically they realized webmasters were starting to just manipulate that. So they had to get more advanced to turn it into more of an AI algorithm before LLMs, but really a really complicated AI algorithm that by 2015 or 16 or 14, they couldn't even understand what was going on. They didn't know what their own ranking factors necessarily were, because they were just training an AI in the similar way that you train an LLM.
After Matt Cutts and his team had at it for a few years or whatever, it kind of became like its own sentient thing. Yeah.
And we found out earlier this year that like most of what Matt Cutts was saying was an intentional lie. I mean, there was some like decent advice in there, whatever. Whenever their Google's needs aligned with everyone else's needs, like it was like, yeah, don't shoot yourself in the foot. But like their whole Google's whole public relations and their whole like SEO relations kind of thing has been to intentionally lie to engineer people and scare people. People have been saying for a long time that they're sort of hey, they said to do this, but like this demonstrably does not work. We've done like rigorous testing. This does, like, they're lying. People go, I don't know. I don't want to like cross Google. Like, what if I get punished, or, they would know,
Dude, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because during the reign of Matt Cutts, I saw him talk and I saw everything Google was doing publicly. And I was doing a lot of SEO at that time. And I always thought to myself, he is just a PR smokescreen.
Yep.
He is there to confuse the SEOs of the world and to, like you said, either to lie or to manipulate, or just like he's the mascot of the company. He's like the Ronald McDonald, who's just like, maybe I'm telling the truth and maybe I'm not. But oh, by the way, Panda Penguin, like here's another update.
Yeah,
like exactly. Just to throw everybody off constantly. And it's like, oh my God, everyone's so thrown off constantly. There's this constant disarray. What are they really doing? But I always kind of saw through that, and I was like, no, I think that this guy doesn't even really know what they're creating.
Yeah. I saw a lot of, even at the time, a lot of people saying, like directly proving that he was wrong. And they'd usually kind of find some weaselly kind of way to say, oh, we didn't really mean that exactly. We were more speaking generally, or, they'd kind of weasel out of it whenever necessary, or they just wouldn't, like, they're powerful enough that they just don't even have to reply. They just pretend he didn't exist and, put out another video that people are going to go, oh, I have to do this now. And they were really just, they knew they had this like really dominant position already by then. And they knew they were just, oh, our algorithm would work better with this, or we'd sell more stuff if the damn webmasters would just do this thing, and they'd tell people, yeah, you got to do that. It's helpful, but they were really just manipulating people. And basically Google had a giant leak earlier this year that showed all their different factors that they look at. And there was all kinds of stuff in there that said,
is that right?
Absolutely. Wow. Don't look at that. That's not a factor. That is not a factor. We don't.
Oh,
and they had
I'd like to get my hands on that.
Basically everything is, you can find it. Google leak document. It's huge. I've never looked through much of it because it's like, I don't remember. It was like thousands of pages. It was 14,000 ranking factors.
Wow.
And some of them, it's like, some of them they might not be using, but they're recording it in case they need to. And they're also feeding that all into the algorithm. So if the algorithm can find it, like if the algorithm is able to look at it, it can become a ranking factor just because it noticed the statistical significance in the AI training model.
I should ask Google Gemini to summarize that document for me.
Yeah, you definitely could. I just saw a Google summary of how screwed they got by the FTC a month ago.
It's like, Gemini, please give me the top 20 most important facts from the Google document link earlier in 2024.
Yeah. But yeah, to your main question, like really the reason why everyone's stuck with them, the reason why they don't have competitors is the same reason why if you own all of the train tracks, what value is a new railroad company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
If I can't go anywhere, I don't care how good you are at trains. I don't care how much nicer your train your locomotive is. I don't care if you have you've got Detroit to Ann Arbor. Cool. I'm not going there. It's a network effect. You have to have a large train network that goes places, and that has to be free. Some of the remedies they're talking about are basically sharing out anonymized user data from Google, forcing them to make public or make semi-public findings. The same thing they use to train their algorithm, other people are allowed to. And that's one of the only ways, because people will, there's a lot of ideas of, what if we, stop making the browser default? Like, that's a start. Google's been paying a crap load of money to Apple and other companies to make themselves the default search engine, which is like classic anti-competitive behavior. Like they don't get money out of that. Like they're just spending it to keep people out. people will keep going back to Google, even if you try to, you try to make the default something else. They'll go, oh, this isn't Google. I need to find Google, and that's a hard, that's a hard sticking point. But you need that's why you need to do more than just that procedural stuff. You need to have shared data. You need to have, let's see what other people can do with this data. They might be able to blow your socks off with, hey, I can look this up. I can talk to this phone. I can open up this app and talk to it, and it'll give me like a way better answer. It'll collate real information. It'll do all this cool stuff with data that Google's just kind of like I've said, Google could give you much better information, much better answers, but it just wants you to click on an ad and buy something.
Yeah. I've been thinking for a while of describing it to people as a commerce engine or like a commerce search engine. Like when I talk to leads and clients and anybody who wants to talk about SEO, I'm just like, and they ask me questions about like, because also, I don't know if I want to go down this rabbit hole right now, but they do a lot of like purposeful censoring now too. Like not just like, oh, it didn't show on the page. It's like, no, Bing and DuckDuckGo and all the other ones found it for me on the first try. Why are you guys hiding this? So I'm trying to like have that conversation with people now as we get like Google is becoming more politicized by government and big interests and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. And people ask me like, Paul, isn't SEO dead or isn't SEO dying? I'm like, well, not really. Like if you're just a brand on the internet trying to sell something to people, no, you're perfectly fine because it's a search engine for commerce. It's to promote the buying and selling of things, not a big deal. But if you happen to be talking about something that someone somewhere doesn't want you to be talking about, then SEO is not the thing for you, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting. I almost wonder if there's like an under the table handshake in the big tech world because of like these companies telling each other, hey, don't go into our space and we won't go into your space. Because I was sure, I even predicted this, and I guess I was wrong about it. When Amazon, Amazon buys websites once in a while. They own IMDb and they bought Zappos and they have like 10 or 20 or something like sites, like brands in their umbrella. They bought that internet indexing site called Alexa.com.
Yeah.
Like during the time they were creating the Alexa home speakers that you talk to in your house, the smart homes, like right around that time or before it. And at that time, Alexa was like the authority, and now like SEMrush and like Moz.com and some of the other guys who've sort of taken over in that regard. I think maybe just SEMrush, but Alexa was the authority on which sites in the world get the most traffic. And it was data that was like outside of Google Analytics. It was just like general broad data.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, that's a huge deal. Amazon just bought this. I predicted to several friends, I'm like, mark my words, Amazon's going to launch a internet search engine and they're going to call it Alexa. That's why they bought Alexa. And like they shut down Alexa.com, the website recently. And I'm like, oh, I guess I was wrong about that. But I'm like, why wouldn't Apple or Amazon or like somebody else who has, or even Facebook who has the firepower and the engineering to do it, actually give them a run for their money and do it? It's so bizarre that it hasn't happened.
One of the only notable companies that's been trying to become a search engine is TikTok. They've been doing something in their algorithm. They want people to look for stuff around them. It's still not a great search engine, but a lot of little kids use it like a search engine. Like they'll just ask anything, and the results are typically like sparser, but oftentimes better. Oftentimes it's just a video creator who wants his video to do well, and they're giving the best information that they can. It's kind of like earlier internet in a way, and they've been incentivizing their video creators. They've been basically giving them a lot more views. If people who view the video not only stay and watch and like that still makes them get more views, but they've been disproportionately rewarding people who trigger their video viewers to do a search in TikTok. Because they want to get people used to using that search bar that's always been at the top, or at least for a long time been at the top of TikTok. You're saying,
sorry to repeat that, they're encouraging the content creators to tell their audience to use the search bar?
Yeah.
Like either in their video or like in their comment section or something like that? Like,
if you're on the video and anything in the video or the comments or the title or any way that happens, if people tend to click on that top search bar and search for something, you get extra views. And on TikTok, this has kind of had some negative effects where there's so many more videos, so many more, where they take the climax of the scene of the video, or they tell you something's going to happen and then it just ends the video. And you have to go either look at their profile or you have to search for part 2 of the thing you were just watching. There's been a huge uptick in people just doing this, making the most annoying videos that have no value because you've put the answer to the question people are asking in the video or whatever it is, or people pointing a gun at each other and then it cuts.
So there's like a to be continued for a lot of videos now, basically.
Exactly. Huh. They're doing a ton of that. And so people have of course found a way around, actually using it as a way to manipulate that sort of like manual kind of algorithm change that TikTok has done. But it's still, they don't really care, because if you do have to search, you're just used to, even if you're a little annoyed at the video creator, you're still getting used to using that search bar. Because they like it when people are going to them. And TikTok is a Chinese company. They're not in that Silicon Valley, handshake under the table ecosystem. They're very much, in our tech ecosystem, they're a breakout. And I would not be surprised if Google came up with some technology to undercut Amazon, or threatened to they could have just threatened. A lot of Amazon traffic is people going to Google and then Amazon's top result. They could have gone directly up to them and said, "Hi, I will do anti-competitive crimes to you if you do this." And they went, "Oh shit, okay." Steve Jobs was all about directly threatening illegal practices to people. That's part of why Apple's so big, is he just said, "No, we'll delete you off the App Store, or we'll make up a reason. Like, if you don't sell to us, we'll just delete you off the App Store, and then what are you worth now?" Like, we'll just doing crimes all day, every day was his main thing. You kind of get the
idea that that's his personality.
Yeah.
Well, he killed Flash, remember?
Yeah.
Like, Steve Jobs said Flash is dead, so it's dead. And it's just like, no one even talked. For like a day, people talked about it. And it was like, no, Apple's doing this. This is canon now. This is true. So
exactly. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of collusion. They got caught a while ago. I can't even remember when, but a few years ago, they got caught saying, "I won't hire your people if you don't hire my people," which is super illegal.
Mm-hmm.
They were all doing that. And so, and a lot of what Google had a practice that is much less nowadays, after they've done a ton of layoffs, which you combine these antitrust suits, where they're not trying to buy people off and crush competition as much. And you've got a bunch of people that were laid off of Google. They're programming something right now that we're gonna be using every day. Whoever got laid off from Google at some other company, and
interesting.
They had a practice of hiring PhD janitors. Their BS kind of explanation for this was like, what if a developer is walking down the hall talking to the other developer, and then the janitor's like, "Hey, I know an algorithm that would be able to, solve that with less computational power." That was what they said it was for. But they were just cleaning the floors. What they were doing was making it so that small, venture capital backed, little startups could not afford developers, just in general. So just a blanket way to crush competition by hiring everyone who might be able to compete with them.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying now. I was kind of confused.
PhD janitors.
So you're saying anyone who might have had the mind to build something, they would hire them and find a role for them no matter what, even if the role was janitorial role or something like that. Like works the front desk at the cafe or something, because they didn't want that person being employed somewhere else.
And they had
wow.
Huge. They had one of the hugest staffs.
Wait, this is public? This is
it's public knowledge,
Google did this.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And probably a lot of other ones. I don't even know, but I know the Google was the biggest one behind that.
You know what? It reminds me. Did you ever watch the HBO show Silicon Valley?
A tiny bit. Yeah. This is the startup nerds and
Dude, it is. Mike Judge, the creator, has done a lot of good things. He's done like Beavis and Butthead. I think he did Daria. He did like Office Space, a whole bunch of comedies. This is probably, in my opinion, the best thing he's ever done and will ever do, because he nails the bizarreness of Silicon Valley and all those people over there and how they think to such like an amazing like comical T. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna spoil it or anything. But there is a character in the show who is obviously not very talented at anything. He's just kind of like, he's the best friend of like one of the guys, and he's just like a very likable he's the only down to earth guy maybe in the whole show, because he's just like a normal dude. He gets hired by the company in the show that like is basically Google is called Hooli. So he gets hired by this company Hooli because they think he's a genius, and then they find out he's maybe not as much of a genius as they thought. So they keep him on the payroll, and he ends up sitting on the rooftop every day with a bunch of other guys who are still being paid by the company to just not have a job somewhere else. They're just like getting a salary to sit around and like play hacky sack with beanbags and stuff, because
pigeons.
that exact concept of just like, keep this guy here because he's brilliant, and maybe he'll go be our competitor somewhere else.
Yeah, and they definitely base that off of stories from Google for sure. Yeah.
That's a good one.
So that's one of the more fortunate sort of, anti-competitive practices, because at least, the developers make a lot more money. But the last couple of years, they've been rolling that back. They've been rolling back Google's, internal benefits and laying a ton of people off. And, Google's not fun anymore. It's like, because you're not making $300,000 to like, skateboard around or whatever the hell they do.
Yes, exactly. Right.
But
sorry, we can't afford to keep paying you this much money to sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
But that's what, that's what happened over at Twitter when Elon bought it. There's a bunch of stuff, like some memes and some pictures and stuff that he posted. It was like, he buys Twitter and immediately lays off like 80% of the people. Yeah. Cause they're just like, there's a bunch of jobs where people just kind of, it's not that they were doing nothing, but maybe there wasn't quite as much value as they thought.
Some of them were definitely doing nothing. Some of them were definitely doing, figure out who's a Nazi and ban them. Yeah. So you got a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Kind of controlling things, and then pushing narratives and all that.
Yeah.
Dang, man, this is good. Well, we got an hour 8 so far. We could keep talking if you want. I was just taking notes while you were talking because, dude, there's potentially so many topics here that I'd like to go over with you, but I don't want to get too overwhelmed. Just to kind of do something that's a little bit more, I want this podcast to be general, shooting the breeze like we're doing right now about industry stuff, but then also maybe a little bit more like actionable items for someone who's trying to learn something. Going back to what we talked about a while ago at the very beginning, I was taking some notes, talking about migrations of websites.
Yeah.
Have you done like a significant migration or two? Have you like been hands-on in that process?
Yeah, I've done maybe dozens and dozens of migrations. I've migrated, 1 million page sites, 500,000 page sites. I had one migration where almost all the URLs were like a base 64 like number, so you couldn't match anything, and so I had to crawl every single page to like in like 1 million pages to find like the H1 and then match the H1 to, because there was no information in the URL. It was just a random number. It was like a forum for a tech company that was very reliant on their forum to get like, how do I do XYZ kind of traffic. I've dealt with not only migrations, but post-migration cleanup, like, oh, hey, can you help us? We just migrated our site and it's bottomed out. And those are always interesting and fun a little bit, but also kind of, scary or whatever.
Are they migrating platforms or domain names or both, or how does it usually go down?
So there's a few different types. There's the most minor end is like, oh, we did some kind of like redesign and maybe someone messed something up as they kicked the, the mop over while they were, cleaning up in it, and smacked into the computer, and started sparking. It's stuff that shouldn't have any effect. Like we're doing a CSS overhaul, shouldn't have any effect, but just having people in there all day, someone's likely to just click a button that breaks something. And then the next level is like, yeah, we're doing a taxonomy change. We're changing a lot of pages on the site, a lot of stuff staying the same, but we're moving this to here, we're moving that to there. We're reorganizing our products, that sort of thing. Then there's like, okay, we're switching from Optimizely to Magento. And we're also, changing all of our URLs at the same time. Like a lot of times they build up all this tech debt and also all these like concepts that they want to do, and they say, okay, we want to do this, but like we should just wait until we have the new platform to do it. It'll be easier in the new platform, or whatever, or we just don't want to have to do it twice. And so oftentimes when they're moving to a new platform, they're also doing a redesign. They're also changing how a bunch of pages on the site work. They're also deleting bad content they had, or they're mixing everything up, or they're like, no, really, we want to organize our equipment into, outdoor equipment and vehicle attachments or whatever. Like we're changing how our business thinks about these different components. And so you have basically a lot of URLs that the content on them is changing, or the URL is moving to another URL. We're moving subfolders around. And so like the main thing that you have to accurately do is have redirects that go from point A to point B, so that basically when the website goes when it migrates over, Google still has the old website. All the results still point at the old website. And when I click on, there's a snowblower, I click on that snowblower, it brings me to that snowblower. It doesn't bring me to the category page that contains that snowblower down there. That's a miss. And sometimes it's like they might be doing a weird thing where it's like, these 4 snowblowers are the same, basically. And so we're going to put them on one product page, and we're going to have like maybe a dynamic URL that brings you there. Or, hey, when you click between these 4 options, the URL bar doesn't even change. And so it's like, how do I even get people when they click on the 200cc version? People don't have a lot of it. People aren't paying a lot of attention. They're not going to go, I'll just click down here and I'll get the one I wanted. They're not going to see the one they wanted. Google's going to see that the text on the page is different. So you have to be telling the developers like, oh, hey, like I know that the way your site is built is fine, but the kind of difference between the two sites is a problem. And so we need a way to get people from this product to there. Like, and sometimes you have, an issue where you have a one snowblower has 20 options. You can get the little shovel, you can get a different engine size, you can have the different color or whatever. Sometimes those will be like, they'll have like 45 pages with 45 slightly different snowblowers that are all the same thing. And so there's duplicative content, and you want to like mash them together into one, which is generally a good thing. When there isn't a lot of value difference between these, you want to set up like variants that they can select instead of having 45 different pages, or 64 or 128 different pages, or 1024 different pages, that are also in the same snowblower with like a different hose or whatever. So there's a lot of that kind of like systematizing, bringing people to the value that they had before. Because if that's not there, Google just goes, yeah, when people type in 100cc red snowblower, and you don't have a page that says 100cc red snowblower anymore, you lose for this term now, and someone else wins.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of like, there's a lot of little techniques and little like little things you have to do, and you have to, make sure that they're not, no indexing it. You have to make sure a lot of different things are happening. You need to make sure that the files that they're building the site with are accessible, because sometimes, developers will create 30 CSS files and 25 JavaScript files, and they might load the contents of the page with the 25th out of 27 JavaScript files. And you need to make sure that the basic information about the product is ideally in the actual page source. It's on the HTML. When you block all the JavaScript, you block all the CSS, you still see something vaguely that looks like a web page, vaguely has that information, looks like crap, but it at least is readable to a person. That's the ideal. Google can actually read JavaScript. A lot of people think that Google can't. It definitely can, but it's much less consistent about it, and it's much less willing to kind of spend a lot of resources just to find out what your page looks like. And I mean, they measure it in pounds of coal, basically. How much coal do I have to spend? How much hydroelectric energy, how much gasoline has to go into looking at your website? And there's a lot of websites out there, and if you require people to use JavaScript to render the page just to find out what the name of the product is or the meta page title or whatever, Google will do a little bit of that, but they'll stop. And they'll stop at a certain point. Oftentimes they'll load 20 out of 40 JavaScript files or whatever, or 5 out of 10 or whatever it is. And it really depends on how important you are. If Amazon, shitted up their pages and made it really, intensive for Google to render, they'd be more likely to give them a lot more leeway. Although a site the size of Amazon, they might, give them a call and say, hey, this is, this is a problem. Can we maybe,
trim that down.
Yeah, trim that down. That's really you just cost us $5 million. We might have to, kind of, cost you $5 million. There's a lot of that, making sure the resources work and stuff like that. That's kind of modern technical SEO. But really, the most important thing, I'd say 90% of the time, the most important thing is just that those redirects are in when you're doing a migration. That's
what I was going to ask. Yeah. That's the number one thing.
The biggest thing goes wrong. Oftentimes it's hard. Oftentimes it's actually pretty easy, but there's nobody paying attention to it. They don't even think about it. They just think, oh, I had a website, I replaced it with a better website, so I should do better. It's not really true. It might eventually recover after a year to being better. You don't want that. You want to be better 5 minutes after. You want no drop in traffic. I worked at an agency where we actually advertised 0 traffic loss migrations, and it was almost always true. Vast majority of the time. And usually if it wasn't true, it was oh yeah, okay, we deleted such and such series of pages that you don't care about, so ignore that. If we go into the analytics and ignore that, that traffic we knew we didn't want, we are actually up 2% instead of down 5% or whatever. A big part of SEO really is being able to analyze data. Of course, a little bit of an aside, GA4 sucks. Google Analytics 4
I think everyone knows
super
that, yes.
horrible. And I've talked to a lot of SEOs, a lot of very smart SEOs who are like, no, it sucks. It's not you. It's GA4. It's really designed to make it harder to tell what's going on. It's really designed to make it easy to report overall. I put add money in and I got money out. It's still very good at that, but it's actually GA4 and also Looker Studio. They launched GA4 without ever integrating their own product, Looker Studio, properly with it. Because they sunset stuff all the time. They sunset and they fail to support their products all the time because Google's just selling ads, and all this other stuff is it's either make work or they're seeing what might make them a ton of money and then ignoring it when it doesn't make them a ton of money. But
I was going to bring that up a few minutes ago when we were talking about Google and Matt Cutts. No, not even the Matt Cutts thing. We were talking about just their business model in general.
Yeah.
And how they haven't innovated in a while.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's funny because they have so much money. They're a company that's known to throw money at a new idea and then sunset it.
Yep.
It's like the thing. Like if you wrote like a business school history book on Google, it'd be like, what is their business model? It is to try something new and then to let it go away for no reason.
Yep.
Like even like Google Stadia, like their video game platform.
That's my favorite example.
It's like, oh my God, that was, and I had Stadia. I was like, this is revolutionary. This is cool. It's all serving everything from it's streaming the processing power for the game is happening somewhere else. It's streaming to whatever screen you want. And I actually have a couple of friends that are really big into gaming, and they saw this happening when Google launched it. And their first response to me was, I would wait if I was you on this one, because knowing Google, they're probably not going to keep this thing for very long.
Yeah.
And everybody else, including Google, was like, no, we're in this for good. Like, it's really happening. It's a big deal. Yeah. And then like a few years later, it's like, yeah, we're getting out of Stadia. The whole thing is over.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I guess that is their business model, to just like do something, get excited about it, and then be like, nah, I guess we're not going to do it.
In one of their first major interviews about Stadia, the first question that the interviewer asked, when they're like, we're so excited, we're launching this, what do you want to know about Stadia? And the guy's like, so when are you sunsetting it?
No way.
It was one of the first questions. The guy was clearly a little distressed. People were talking about, because Google has such a bad reputation.
That's got to be on YouTube or something. That's got to be somewhere.
Yeah, I should clip that. When are you going to sunset it? Because there's a website called
Brilliant.
Is it like Google Graveyard or something like that?
That's good.
Google Graveyard, killedbygoogle.com, the Google Graveyard. And you can scroll down, and they've got starting from most recent. So the most recent thing they killed in December, or they are killing in 3 months, is Google Jamboard. And Chromecast, VPN by Google One, Dropcam, Google Podcasts, Keen, Google Domains, Google Optimize. I miss Google Optimize, because now if you want to do A/B testing, you have to fork over an insane amount of money. And that was like the only really like easy to use free one.
Who are the players in the A/B game now that you have to pay money to?
It's like Optimizely, Zoho. There's a couple other ones. I used to do a little bit of that, and I kind of got out of it because it was like, it's hard to convince people to spend $60,000 a year or whatever the hell. Like it's all expensive platforms now.
I didn't know Zoho, dude. Good. I don't know what Zoho is, who they are, where they came from, but good for them. I keep on seeing them. Like, they've got different apps that are popping up more and more often, and they're pretty decent. And I don't know. Are they like a sub tech company that's trying to grow, or like?
I don't know much about them either. I just know that they do have an A/B testing tool. A/B Tasty is one I've heard of. I think Adobe has a product. I don't remember what that is.
Okay, interesting.
But
I feel like it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, well, maybe it is hard to do it for an entire site, because there's a lot of landing page services now that'll do it built in. Like, I don't know if Lead Pages does it, but like Lead Pages and some of their, like, there's 3 or 4 competitors to them. But I also feel like just like the average WordPress plugin can do it too. Right? So why would it be such an expensive thing?
Yeah, and I know there are some free tools that are a little less developed, but that, like, Google Optimize was such a big, like, I mean, I really think probably just the fact that Google Optimize was free was killing competition for a while, and we'll probably see a flourishing of cheaper A/B testing platforms, because it wasn't that long ago they killed it.
So you were saying on that kill website, they said, so it was Google Optimize and a few others. And if you want to look at the whole list, I guess you could just go to that site.
Yeah, killedbygoogle.com. I mean, YouTube Stories, Grasshopper, Google Currents.
Does it have the date?
Standalone app.
What's this? Does it have the Stadia date on there?
Oh yeah,
I think it was like within the past couple of years. It wasn't that
Google
recent.
Stadia killed over 1 year ago. 2019 to 2023 was the lifetime of it.
23. Okay,
it was 3 years old and they killed it. And then the very first one on the list, I think, was Google Desk Bar. It was like a Windows toolbar. It was only 2 years old when they killed it. But yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff in here. Like, a lot of this is stuff you've never heard of, because they just make so much stuff, and it is related to their make work sort of model, where they have one thing that makes a ton of money, and then it's almost like the labs did this. They had they own all the phones, and they make all the phone money, and they charge people for long distance calls, like a bazillion dollars. And then they had Bell Labs, which is just like, oh, let's just like invent stuff all day, let's figure out, and then we'll not use it at all. and that's why a ton of value came out of breaking up Bell Labs, or breaking up AT&T or whatever. And Valve, I mean, speaking of video games, Valve is like that too. Valve owns Steam. Steam is just it's a pretty dominant platform. You have Epic and GOG, and there's a couple other. There's been more popping up, but for a while they were really dominant. They're still extremely dominant, and they're still taking a 30% cut of all games. And Valve is a company that used to make video games, and they made Steam so that you could download their 5 games or whatever. And then they were like, let's sell other people's games. And it just, and that's the only thing they really make money off of. And they have a really loose, insane kind of corporate structure where it's just like, oh, you just kind of like literally physically push your desk around and decide to work with someone else who's making a thing, and if people feel like they don't want to work on it, they just kind of push their desk away. And
I heard that. Yeah, they get into little clusters of side projects, and it goes somewhere.
At the same time, it's sort of cutthroat. Like they have like a weird process, I can't remember, for like firing people, kind of like kind of Lord of Flies sounding kind of thing, as far as I know. And they, people joke, they can't count to 3 ever since.
They're afraid of the number 3.
Afraid of number 3. There's no Team Fortress 3. There's no Half-Life 3.
Even the 3s they said there was going to be, like, they were like, yes, we're going to do Half-Life 2 episode 1, 2, and 3.
And they only
said that, and they never did 2.
They only got to 2. and like they actually just made a game. It took them a long time. They just made like a sort of MOBA, like a League of Legends style third-person game called Deadlock that I've been playing a little bit. It's pretty fun, but took them years to come out with a dang game. I mean, they had a couple of spin-off Half-Life things, of VR. They did a bunch with VR, and now they're not as like,
the Alex.
They're waiting forever to come out with the next VR thing, like, because they're like, I guess people don't care about VR as much, but they're just dicking around. They're making a ton of money because they own the platform that people log into to buy the game. They just go, oh, Shadow of Mordor came out, I'm going to go to Steam and I'm going to buy it. They don't go to they don't go to anybody else. And so they're just they're raking in money the same way Google's raking in money. And then they're just like doing weird stuff and canceling and trying different stuff. And they're just kind of like, I don't know, because it doesn't matter, because this has no impact on their business.
Yeah,
they're just,
I see what you're saying. It's a similar business model to Google, where it's like, well, we got our cash cow, and nobody does it better than us, so we're just going to mess around with our money, and we're just kind of bored, and that's just what they do. Yeah,
it seems like a very, very bored company from what I've heard. Both of them. And that's probably, I know Amazon does a lot of weird little stuff. It's probably the same way. I mean, AWS is kind of their cash cow that they use to like subsidize their storefront. Really.
I think that Amazon at least has a better track record of, it's not
doing
obviously, Bezos checked out a long time ago, but whoever runs the show over there now, at least is like, we have a 5-year plan, and here's the 5-year plan. Like when they buy a website, they do something. Yeah. Like look at all the content for Amazon Prime now. Like they've won like Oscars and Golden Globes. It's like, okay. Yeah. They didn't just say they were going to start making movies.
Shit all over the place. They just get it done. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make money. But they're not building that reputation of ghostware, vaporware or whatever.
They give it a good college try for a while, and then they actually put some time into it.
Exactly.
Do you want people to find you anywhere? Do you have anything public facing people to find? Or
I just have like a resume website. At this point, I'm working on like a sort of almost a blog or whatever that I don't have published yet. But my resume site is just karlboehm.org. And that's probably going to be where I put, a little more of a deluxe kind of like blog and more kind of talking about some sort of this type of stuff.